Let me now invite Colonel Shyam Vidurupola to present. In introducing Colonel Shyam Vidurupola, I should say that when he was a young officer, I met him. He was serving in the Sri Lankan High Commission in London as our defense advisor, and since then he's done a lot. He's moved to work with the UN and with a number of other agencies, especially in the field of disarmament and demobilization of ex-combatants, and also worked very significantly on reintegration of those ex-combatants. And I think he'll share his perspectives of understanding conflict, transition, recovery in South Asia, largely drawing from his own experience in Nepal and also Sri Lanka. Colonel Vidurupola.
Thank you, Chair. I'm privileged to be here with you, and especially in much known company, and also getting the opportunity to catch up on a long friends that I have not met for a long time. Yes. No, I'm just thinking. Right. Honorable the Vice Chancellor of the KDU, General Pires, who happens to be a batchmate of mine as well, and distinguished guests, victorious and proud servicemen of the Sri Lankan Armed Forces, instructors of various disciplines of the KDU for future leaders, officer cadets, ladies and gentlemen and friends. In the short time allocated to me, I shall try to scan through various aspects of conflict in South Asia, discuss aspects of transition, but leave aside recovery at its, as I feel it was covered extensively yesterday, especially in General Chancellery's presentation. Thereafter, I shall try to explain the significance of security sector reform and try to bring in examples from the two most recent civil wars in South Asia, namely Sri Lanka and Nepal, and finally view the changing roles that the armed forces in the region may have to assume with new challenges. KDA or KDU is a very close to heart experience to me. I was an instructor here about 25 years ago, and I still remember the day that those IPKF planes were landing on transit in Ratmanan, and I was thinking, what are you doing here? This is our war, we'll fight it. And we'll win it one day, but I didn't know it will take so much time, but we won it. Now, violence and bloodletting is not new to South Asia, having been for centuries invaded, occupied, colonized, divided and ruled, abandoned in ethnic and religious tensions. Post-colonial regimes display an increased tendency to seek the path of violence to resolve these differences, whether independence has been struggled for or achieved peacefully. Bloody conflict is easy to get into, but extremely, extremely difficult to get out of, especially the reconciliation and healing processes. Colonial influence, however, to its credit, enhanced state capacity to recognize civil and political rights framed within the democratic practices. India, the largest democracy in South Asia, and the leader of SAARC by size and its sheer presence, dominates the South Asian security arena. Over 60 years of continued hostilities in Kashmir still haunts India and Pakistan, and the regional security cooperation. Security is a no-go in terms of table dialogue in the SAARC, in many ways due to these reasons. Border sharing with Afghanistan, the youngest member of SAARC, has deepened the security crisis for Pakistan with many aspects of conflict, including a huge amount of spillover, or millions of spillover of displaced people. Nepal's ambition to a post-monarchical federal democracy suffers from party infighting and the sheer lack of capacity to create democratic institutions. Bhutan, still a constitutional monarchy, is constrained geographically with economic implications, as in the case of Nepal. Bangladesh copes with religious tensions and frequent natural disasters, while the power changes in Maldives in the recent past have not been as smooth as the international community anticipated. Sri Lanka ends a 26-year-old separatist insurgency, and unlike many other conflicts, having the democratically elected government in place, and capacity, the civil service, everything is the democratic structures in place, it has a capacity to recover early. So we see centuries of shared tradition, culture, and religious practices in South Asia having failed to ensure trust and tolerance in the region. Our own conflict here, framed within ethnic lines between communities, is no strange story. Human aspirations for secession and self-determination instigated internal conflict mostly during the mid-1900s, and thereby paved way for mechanisms of conflict resolution and recovery. The security of the individual and the state remaining the primary focus, strategies were developed within the framework of security sector reform. These feed into policy and practice world over, in Africa, in Latin America, in Balkans, and in other regions, and have been helpful, especially when local ownership has been considered on a priority basis, and projects have been launched in that manner. Now I shall explain SSR briefly because it is widely misunderstood as external and international will to interfere with the security forces. Security, defense, and finance are three words that post-war governments grab onto and very defensive about, and rightfully so too. Security sector reform is simply various practices which ensure the well-being of the individual as well as the state within a framework of democracy. Security by itself, however, may be feeble to ensure durable peace in the absence of sustainable development programs. SSR, or security sector reform, is agreed upon and live in the highest political corridors, the high political agendas, and desires effective governance, oversight, and accountability. Delivery of security and justice is a criteria with local leadership and ownership to reform processes and have to be periodically reviewed. What are the institutions of security? Who are these actors of security? You get the co-actors, the armed forces, the police, the Jandumar, the customs, the border guards, the correction services, and other civil security institutions. Then you have the management and oversight bodies, the executive, the national security advisor, the MOD, internal affairs, home ministries, foreign ministries, civil society, and public commissions. Then you have the justice and justice and law elements of the judiciary, the justice ministries, human rights commissions, prosecution services, and sometimes traditional justice systems. And then you have the non-statutory, which is usually the most misunderstood, the liberation armies, the guerrillas, the insurgents, the private security companies, and sometimes vigilantes. So all these institutions have to be fitted in within a democratic framework in ensuring the security of the individual and the state. Now I shall go to the cases of Nepal and Sri Lanka. Take some examples. There are many, but I can't shove them into 15 minutes. Nepal is a landlocked country, and Sri Lanka is surrounded by water, where the advantages and vulnerabilities are different. With the Indian and Chinese interests on both countries remaining significant, that also brings in underlying security connotations. In Nepal, the Communist Party of Nepal mustered the population to oust the monarchy after 11 years of agitation, and the masses ousted them in April 24, 2006. The agitation of the Nepali people echoed of long-term neglect, social exclusion, extreme poverty, and total ignorance of rights. The caretaker government which has changed many times, has failed to produce a written constitution as they promised, due to intra-party and inter-party fighting, and absolutely no political agreement. About 1,350 lives were lost in the conflict. And there are other details here which I don't want to go into. The UN was requested to assist in peace process, established 28 camps or cantonments for the rebels, and they housed 32,000 Maoist combatants. But right now, the priority, if they have to achieve peace, is to merge the rebel army and the national army together, or find some way of a single mechanism, because the country cannot have two armies. I remember on 23rd of July 1983, I was taking my